I've never stayed in a game with Pheano on Talishar before. I have never stayed. I am the fastest lever in the West. I see a Pheano, I windmill slam that back button so fast. Playing against Pheano is, I think, one of the biggest negative play experiences I've ever seen in card games. Why is Pheano an issue? What makes Pheano so good? And is it actually a problem right now? First, for the people watching this that have no clue what Pheano's about, let me give a really brief explanation of who Pheano is and what he's about for the YouTube frog out there that has no idea what's going on. Maybe they're just clicking on this from another card game or something. So Pheano is a wizard who primarily deals arcane damage at instant speed. To compensate for his ability to play at instant speed, almost all of his cards are below rate, and he starts at 30 life, which is 10 less than most other heroes. What he makes up for that, though, in that lack of raw value in his cards, is he can spirit bomb you off of the face of the frickin' planet in a single turn. Some of his cards synergize super well together and lead to multiplicative scaling damage, where this one card is worth X on its own, but when you combine it with another card, its value skyrockets. These cards in particular we're talking about are Aether, Wildfire, and Blazing Aether. I'll edit in an image here on the YouTube video. The damage they deal leads to more damage, and then the other one deals damage based on the damage you dealt, so it creates this feedback loop of just snowballing your damage. For example, again, I'll throw an image up here on YouTube. At the Realm 20K, I played against Peter Butensek, one of the best Pheano players in the world. He dealt like, I think it was 73 damage to me on turn 2. What am I supposed to do about that? He looked through his turn afterwards, and he thought about it, and he's just like, yeah, if you had just passed turn with a full hand and just took no game action, you were still dead. Didn't matter what you did, you were just dead on turn 2. That's Pheano. Pheano can just nuke you off the face of the frickin' planet. What makes Pheano so good right now, and why is he popping up? Where in the past, we really never really heard much of Pheano. The last time we really heard a lot about Pheano was at Pro Tour 1, where he was a like anti-meta pick, I guess. He kind of preyed on the particular meta that we had at that moment of the Starvos and Chains, not the Prisms, but he preyed on those other two decks and their play patterns and punished them for what they were trying to do. Why all of a sudden is he popping up? Because this is clearly not an anti-meta thing. Maybe it was for one moment. Like at the 20K, I don't think most people realized that Pheano was going to be good for that event. I will say, I knew he was going to be good for that event. If you check back on Twitter, I made a tweet saying, like a week or two before that event happened, Majin Bay and Peter, they're my favorite to win this event or something like that. I was calling them out being like, this is going to be their event. And they both did very good, if I remember correctly. I believe at least one of them top 8'd. Maybe it was a good meta pick for that one. Maybe it was an anti-meta for that moment. But then it won the Battle Hardened like almost immediately after, I believe. And then we go into this RTN season, and he, I believe, won the most events this first week. And that's kind of crazy. But maybe we're just overreacting, seeing that number being like, oh my god, Pheano, that's crazy. We may see this number go down. That's a reality. That could happen. One thing that Cody brought up on the podcast last night was we might see a lot of these Pheano players just not bring Pheano again the next week because they already got their invites. I suppose that could happen. But I think there's more to look at with Pheano in this particular moment, and kind of going back to why is he so good right now. One of the things that people commonly point out with Pheano is he punishes greedy deck building. For example, if you're playing a very lean blue count, you're cutting your AB, you're not playing defensive tools to deal with it, and people will always be like, just play Oasis. That's not always the answer. One of the things that's happened recently with a lot of the powerful decks hitting Living Legend, and us not getting really powerful heroes like we used to, things being at a lower power level than they used to be, we're seeing a downpowering of the game. And Pheano has inadvertently benefited greatly from this, because one of the things with Pheano is you gotta put pressure on him. If you're just sitting there with defensive cards, like I'm gonna sit here with AB3 and blues and Oasis and I'm not gonna die, you're not threatening the Pheano in any real capacity. You have to kill the Pheano. If he just gets to sit there and go, yeah, I'll block with 3 cards, play a potion, that wasn't that good of a turn. Let me fish the top of my deck. This isn't the turn. I'll block. I'll play something. I'll fish again. Oh, that was pretty good. I'll shoot you. That also wasn't very good. I'll get some chip on my turn, set up a good arsenal. I'll block. And he just gets to sit there and not have any real threat in his life and just kind of play through his deck how he chooses. And not to mention, he gets to sit there and set up a perfect pitch stack if you're trying to just like actually fatigue him. You cannot fatigue him if the Pheano player just knows what they're doing. A lot of the decks right now are at a power level they can't really pressure him in any meaningful capacity. I think a great example of this is Kasai. Kasai is one of the best decks that's come out of the most recent set. Kasai can't pressure Pheano in any meaningful way. She's very consistent at dealing a fair amount of damage. That amount of damage is very easily blocked. And Pheano doesn't mind taking a little bit of chip damage here and there. He'll go down a little bit, because his life total doesn't matter until he's being threatened with lethal damage. So he can very easily just sit there blocking, playing potions, blocking, fishing for chip damage until he's ready to go off. He has full control over when he wants to go off because there's no threat to his life total. Before, we had really hyper aggressive decks that could like say, no, Pheano, you gotta go off now. Like, it is turn 3, and I'm threatening lethal immediately. Go off or die. In that spot, he can punish decks for being greedy because if he hits the nuts off the top and he wasn't ready, but he just luckered into it, then yeah, he's punishing them for their greedy deck building. But we're not seeing decks like that right now. The closest thing is probably KO. I hate the closest of the names there. Not every deck is able to do that, and even KO can't always do that. He needs that agility token like every turn to be able to do it. It's not as consistent as it was in the past with things like FaB and things like that, of just like, here's this hyper aggro strategy. He really punishes the slower decks, so like Guardian, things like that. Like, if you're just going to sit there with like AB3 and Oasis, he's just going to go, I'm just not going to go off until I'm ready to set up this perfect pitch stack. And now once we hit this, it's go time. I don't care what you have, you're deterministically dead because I've memorized my stack and there's nothing you can do. That's why he's doing so good right now, in my opinion. The downpowering of the game and what is popular right now, we got a lot of slower decks that can't really pressure him. So my next question is this an issue? Should a deck like Pheano exist in the game? Should a deck like Pheano exist in a capacity that it is a meta deck? In my opinion, it's fine with a deck like this existing. Like, I think it's fine. But I think the second it becomes really good, where people are like, my deck decisions revolve around Pheano existing because it's that good of a deck, I think we're now flirting with it becoming a problem. It's not like I said, it's not just add some tech cards to your deck and you solve the matchup. If you want to solve your Pheano matchup for a lot of decks, it's just don't play that deck. It's switch to something else, because your deck just does not have the tools to beat it. It will never have the tools to beat it. The Pheano will always beat you, so you have to change what you're playing. And, you know, sometimes that's fine. Like, it's a metagame. Like, you need to play what's good. He's beating most of the decks in the game, and that's the problem. And there's not much that's, like, objectively really good into Pheano. And even then, Pheano has no true bad matchup right now of just, like, this is utterly cursed, I can never win. And that's another thing with the metagame right now. A lot of the decks right now are in a spot where they've got some good matchups, they've got some not so good matchups, but then they all have a couple decks they're just sacking. They're just like, I can never beat this deck, except if I run into 2 of this in a tournament, my run is dead. Like, I just will never beat this deck in a million years. And Pheano is one of the few decks that doesn't quite have that. Pheano can always win a game. It just has that ability to win a game out of nowhere that it had no business winning. And that makes it very appealing to play Pheano, and kind of throws a wrench into that metagame thing of, we'll just play things that are good to Pheano. Well, he can still beat you. It doesn't matter. He can just, like, ooga booga the top of his deck and hit the nuts. It's just like that specifically is like just a weird thing about this specific meta that we're in right now, which metas in the past haven't quite had that as much. So it's another thing making him really good. Like that downpowering of the game is like, oh, I'm inadvertently taking advantage of the downpowering of the game. Well, he's also inadvertently getting a benefit of how other decks' matchup spreads are, where it makes him very appealing. Getting to a different thing about it that I don't like, look, the balance of the deck is one section of the problem with Pheano, and we can argue that to death, and people can have their opinions about it. You can think I'm wrong and think Pheano's perfectly fine. Maybe we just need to give the meta time to adjust. I accept that. I accept that we just need to figure it out, get good, strategize, let the meta develop. That's fine. I think it's a problem, but we can agree to disagree. What I think is hard to disagree with is the negative play experience of Pheano. One thing that Pheano players very frequently say is it's really hard for them to get practice against other people. Like I opened this video saying, I see a Pheano, I just leave. I don't want to sit down for a game play for like 2 minutes, and then watch them play solitaire for 15 plus minutes for a non-deterministic win. I still have to sit there and watch them do it. It's not like you see someone storming off in Magic for a lot of these types of decks. You go, oh, you've seen the couple pieces. I can scoop here. I know that this is deterministic. There's no way that you fizzle. Like, you've shown me the couple things that you need to go off. It's going to take you a minute of solitaring it, but, like, you got it. Like, I can scoop because I've seen the things that I need to know that you have to scoop. Kano isn't like that. Kano, you got to sit there and watch them do it, and it very frequently takes forever for them to do it. Not always. If they just, like, have the nut hand where they just go, like, Wildfire, Ragamuffins, Wildfire, something else, Blazing, and it's really simple for them to do it. They're just like, yeah, this is my bread and butter combo. Yeah, that doesn't take very long. That's a different issue. We'll get to that in a second. When they're doing the crazy combo and it's like not, oh, you forced their hand to go off and they weren't ready, and now they got to do all this math of figuring out the odds of the different things of their deck. You're just sitting there twiddling with your thumbs. Get your coloring book out. Just watch them play the game. Watch them eat up all the clock. It's not fun. Like, watching my opponent just play the game for like 15 minutes, this is not why I'm here. This is not why I'm playing a game, to watch someone else play the game. It's not fun. And then the next part is when these kind of games happen, even if they don't take the 15 minutes, the game's over in 5 minutes sometimes. My game where I got 72'd by Peter, that was like a less than 5 minute game. Now I just got like 45 minutes to walk around and do nothing. Same thing happened to Lucas against Majin at the Battle Hardened that just happened. I believe he said that the clock had only lost 15 seconds on the clock when they finished their game. Like, they started like just a hair before the clock actually started, and the game was instantly over with only 15 seconds gone from the clock. So he had like an hour to walk around and do nothing. That's not fun. We're playing FaB. This is a very grindy game where we're trying to get like little incremental bits of value and play the most game we can play usually. This is so not what FaB is. This is like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like what I think of when I think of Yu-Gi-Oh! From back in the day, where it's just like ooga 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 booga, you're dead. And that's just not what FaB is. It's not fun to play against that. Either I'm sitting there watching them play forever, or it's a 5-minute game. And one of the biggest things is throughout all of that, there's no agency. It's just, these things happen. Let me know if I'm dead or not. I have no ability to like really interact with much of what you're doing unless I have exactly like an oasis or something. And then it's a singular interaction point when they're done doing their thing. I'm just going to sit there holding my card, waiting. Is this good enough? You tell me. And that lack of agency, again, is just not what FaB is about. FaB is a very high agency game. You get a lot of decision points, and it just very much so goes against what FaB is about. No one wants to play against Kano players a lot of the time because it's just so not fun. And if that isn't an indicator of a deck being an issue, that people just don't even want to play against it, like, I don't know what is. Like, I think that's like one of the biggest points there, that it's just so unfun, no one wants to play against it. But what do you think about it? Chat, what do you think about Kano? YouTube frogs, what do you think about Kano? I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know, I have a strong opinion about it, and most of it stems from it just not being fun to play against. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have differing opinions, especially the Kano players out there, and I don't want to take away from them. Like, this is your moment to shine. Like, every deck should get their moment. I just think that this is a moment that isn't in a healthy way. Like, Icelander, I didn't have a problem with at all. I thought Icelander was a great deck for the game. It was very interactive. That you got to play a lot of game with your opponent. That felt like FaB. That felt like FaB. Where this just doesn't feel like that. All I ever think about is that guy in Magic that would give his opponent a crayon book when he was playing Storms. That way he had something to do while he was comboing off. It's not fun. But yeah, what do you think? Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate you guys.